Hey everybody, welcome to the latest episode of The Rock Experience with Mike Brunn. On this episode, we're going to talk all about the VIP event that Gene Simmons held in Las Vegas this past weekend. Joining me will be longtime Kiss fan and VIP event attendee Doyle Roush. He's going to talk all about what the meet and greet experience was like, the private concert, the dinner with Gene, and much more. Loads of great information in this episode. Thanks so much, Doyle. I think you guys are going to really enjoy it. So let's jump in and let's get started. Hey everybody, welcome to the latest episode of The Rock Experience with Mike Brunn. Today I'm excited to have with me longtime Kiss fan and attendee of the VIP event that Gene Simmons had this last weekend in Vegas. Please welcome to the show, Doyle Roush. How you doing tonight, Doyle?
I'm doing great, Mike. Thanks for having me on, and it's good to reconnect with you.
Yeah, likewise. We were talking a little bit before we got started recording here. You and I met, I think, officially in Indianapolis at the Creatures Fest, and I was getting ready to go out to dinner. I was there by myself, knowing that I knew a bunch of people there. It didn't matter to me, but I was there by myself, getting ready to go to dinner, and I ran into you and Ron Buckley, and you guys were like, "You're going to dinner by yourself?" I'm like, "Yeah, whatever." Like, "Nah, get in the car with us. We'll go to dinner together." And then you guys were kind enough to even pay. You wouldn't let me pay. I remember that night. So that's when I met you, and I was like, you know what? You were at this VIP event. I'd love to chat again and connect.
Yeah, well, don't give me too much credit for dinner, Mike. It was Waffle House after all.
Hey, whatever. It was just kindness out of your own heart. You guys ran into me, and little things like that always stay with me. And we'll talk about it while we're having this chat about the VIP event. But to me, that's what going to these kind of things is all about: is meeting people, hanging out with people. And to me, that meant a lot to me. And I never want you to think that I took it for granted. You might say it was only the Waffle House, but to me, it was like, hey, cool. I'm going to dinner with two friends instead of hanging out by myself for dinner.
Yeah, it was great quality time, and we got to talk about our favorite topic, Kiss. So it was a win-win.
Absolutely. So, before we get into the whole VIP experience, Doyle, obviously some people who are watching and listening to the show may not necessarily know who you are. So I want to give them like a 5-minute background of you. So when did you first become a Kiss fan?
So probably around 76, 77, like many of us my age, somebody's older brother probably had some Kiss albums, and that was my introduction. But my mom bought me my first Kiss album. It was Love Gun from a regional store called Gold Circle. I don't know if those are on the East Coast, but they were here. And so I bought Love Gun, or rather my mom bought it for me. And that kind of started my ascent into fandom. And I saw my first show in 1979, the Dynasty Tour in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Judas Priest opened up, and it was a birthday present for me for my 10th birthday.
Nice.
And I was able to bring a friend, and it was an amazing experience. I wish we had cell phones back then, because I really would love to go back and see all the pictures of everybody, and it was phenomenal. And so I've been a lifelong fan. My wife and I live here in Columbus. And, the reunion tour really restarted and kickstarted my fandom again. And then going on the first Kiss cruise took it to the next level because of the people we met from around the world, many of whom were actually at the event in Vegas. And a lot of those people we still stay in touch with. So very blessed and just super pleased to be part of the Kiss community.
No, that's awesome. Now, was there ever a time that you fell out of fandom? Like for me, I know it seems bizarre, but Creatures at Night, that era, when that album came out, I was like, no, I don't like Kiss anymore. Don't ask me why. It's a nutto thing to think. I stuck through Dynasty. I stuck through The Elder. I stuck through Unmasked, but Creatures of the Night was the breaking point. What the hell was I thinking? But what about you? Did you ever kind of waver away a little bit?
I did actually. I'm glad you asked. So my freshman year in college, I came to Ohio State, and Crazy Crazy Nights was out, and I didn't. That album didn't resonate with me, and I was really focused on other stuff, having fun in college, and I didn't go to a lot of shows during that period. So probably from Crazy Nights until the reunion tour, I dropped off a little bit, and I only saw the band without makeup one time. I saw the Animalize show and Wasp opened up, and that was
Yep,
one heck of a show. But
yep.
probably for 6, 7 years, I wasn't on. It wasn't on my radar, Mike, and I didn't travel to shows, and I didn't see the band then. And frankly, I wish I had because Hot in the Shade, although a lousy album, the tour was phenomenal, and I
It
wish I had
really
seen
was.
some of those shows.
Yeah, and I'd seen the Hot in the Shade tour 3 times. In fact, I was at Eric Carr's final show unknowingly at the time, so when I say I kind of fell out of fandom, it was like for 6 months only, not for years the way you did. So all
Yeah,
of a sudden I heard a new album was coming out. I'm like, oh, I like that band again. I'm gonna go buy it. So, this is
yeah.
funny. Oh man, but it was the reunion tour for you that kind of roped you back in, it sounds like.
Yeah, and it's been on overdrive ever since. And it's funny, my friends think I'm the biggest Kiss fan in the world. And when we were on the first Kiss cruise, I realized I'm just another one of the many fans. There are people whose fandom so far exceeds mine that it's silly to be mentioned in the same breath as some of them. But to my friends, I'm the world's biggest Kiss fan.
Well, it's so funny because my friends will say the same thing about my fandom, and I'm like, no, look, you don't understand. Yes, the general population, I'm a 10 out of 10. I get that. Compared to other diehard Kiss fans, I might be like a 2 out of 10. They're like, no,
Yeah,
that's nuts. I'm like, no, trust me, there are nuts, and I mean that in a good way, not a bad way. Nuts. There are nutso fans out there that far exceed what I do and what I collect, etc. And they're like, no, that's not possible. I'm like, no, trust me, it is.
I'll tell you, one of the first times I really realized that I was just kind of an average fan. We on the first Kiss cruise there was a trivia competition, and there were several folks who are now friends. We met on the cruise and we formed a team, and we thought we're really going to nail this. And we went out, we were on deck the day before, asking each other's questions, warming up, and it was terrible. Like I think we were in last or something, and we thought we were
Oh,
going to
that's
win
great.
it.
That's great. But that's to me part of the fun of all of these things. So obviously you've been on the cruises, and those of us who have been on the cruises know we used to take a picture with the band. They've since done away with that. But have you in the past met any band members one-on-one prior to this weekend in Vegas?
I have a couple times. So sometimes just randomly, I was backstage or at a restaurant after a show in Niagara in 2017, and was hanging out with Keith and Ron and some others. And Eric Singer came back, and
Hmm.
we had and he's an amazing, amazing, courteous guy.
Yep.
He and I have a couple things in common. One is my name is Doyle Eric, and his name is Eric Doyle. His middle name is Doyle,
Yep.
and Gene always points that out. So we have a little bit of a name thing going on, but also he's a huge Ohio State Buckeyes fan,
Yep.
and I have 2 degrees from Ohio State, and my wife has one, so we talk Buckeyes. So I met Eric. I was fortunate enough to meet him one time, but we did Gene's Vault, and I bought a Paul Stanley smash guitar and a piece of art, and I've gone backstage with Ace and Peter a couple times, so I've met those guys, and they're all just amazingly gracious, and you can tell that the fact that Kiss talks about how much they care about their fans, it's not lip service. They really do. You're never
Absolutely.
rushed. They're always polite, friendly, engaging. They never feel put out. Now, of course, some of these events you pay for, but even apart from that, they're not mailing it in, and the affection there, and I mean, it's all genuine.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, obviously, I didn't do the Vegas thing, but I've done some of the like the Vault and some of the other meet and greets, and I'll talk a little bit about it being a money grab, which is what some people call, compared to actually being a legit experience. And I understand both points of view. I'll share that towards the end after we hear about your Vegas experience, because I don't want to take away from that. But I agree with you 1,000%. Every time that I've done some type of meet and greet with the guys, especially Gene, very, very given of his time, very, very, friendly, and really shows interest and takes care and getting to know whoever it is that he's meeting and talking to. So let me ask you this: growing up then in the 70s into the 80s, did you have a favorite band member?
I did. I was an Ace guy for a long time.
Yeah, okay.
Ace was my favorite, and that has since changed a little bit. I this experience probably moves Gene up on my ranking a little bit, but I really have come to appreciate Paul as the glue who held the band together for all those years. And after, through his book and his opening up about the deformity and the struggles and his problems with self-esteem, that's pretty relatable to a lot of people.
Yes.
And so, for a lot of reasons, Paul has sort of become one of my favorites. But I have a soft spot in my heart for all the members, really.
Oh, absolutely. And to that point that you're making right now, I was always a Paul guy all through the 80s. I gravitated towards Paul songs, even in the 70s. My guy was always Eric Carr in the 80s. He was my musical hero. So when he passed away, it crushed me. But in terms of Paul versus Gene, I was a Paul guy growing up. But having met Gene a number of times and the way he treated my kids, my daughter literally sang a song on stage with him once, and he gave my son a piano lesson and was just like so cool and down to earth with my kids that it really I now have if somebody asks me that question, I have a hard time choosing between the two because of that.
Yeah, Gene to me is one of those celebrities who, I mean, certainly he's aware of his reputation and his stature, but you don't get that when you talk to him. And the only other person I can really say that has that same quality is Ohio State Archie Griffin, who was the only two-time Heisman Trophy winner. And for fans of college football and in the Midwest and Ohio particularly, he is an amazing legend, and he is the most easygoing guy ever. So he and Gene, to me, have a certain genuine quality about them that makes them just really sweethearts.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you said that because I remember the first time I met Gene in a situation like this. I'll say this: his on-camera persona and his behind-the-scenes persona are very, very different. And I always found his on-camera persona, quite honestly, a little off-putting and obnoxious. But meeting
Sure.
him one-on-one in these settings, it's such a different person. You get a feeling of what a good-hearted person he really is.
Yeah, I think so. Now, the flip side is he's also a little older, so maybe he's mellowed with age.
Maybe you're
It might
right.
have been different meeting him in the 80s. I'm not suggesting that's the case, but we're meeting him at a point in his life where I think he's a little more intentional and maybe more thoughtful about his interaction with people.
No, that's very true. So he announced this Vegas event. I think it was like the beginning of March when he first announced it. When you heard about it, were you instantly like, I'm in? Or did you have to think about it? What was your thought process when you heard about it?
I thought about it a little bit, and frankly, I had been considering and contemplating whether or not to get an axe bass at one of the shows. And but and I've been backstage for the Paul Smash guitar thing, so I had an idea of what that might be like. But when the itinerary came out, and you're getting a case of his personal collectibles and things from his personal effects and meet and greet and dinner and all these things, I thought I'm going to do it. And so I pulled the trigger relatively quickly. And the first group of 30 sold out fairly quickly.
Sure.
And then they ended up adding different cohorts, if you will. And some folks had a slightly different schedule, but we all shared, the show and the pop up shop and silent auction day. But yeah, I'm glad I did it, and really has been one of the highlight experiences of all my Kiss time. It was phenomenal, exceeded every expectation, and of not only me but my wife. And I brought a first timer along from Columbus. He
Oh,
and his
nice.
girlfriend came, and they're just on cloud nine. It was amazing. So yes, I pulled the trigger fairly quickly.
That's awesome. Now, I'll be honest, I knew I couldn't go because the weekend that it was being held is the weekend my son was coming home from college. So I knew I was out. There wasn't a chance in the world. So because of that, I'll be honest, I haven't read ahead of time a whole lot about it because I didn't want to be like, I'm missing that. So this was a 2-day event. Am I correct in saying that?
Actually, it was a 3-day event
Oh, wow.
because of the groups they added. So
Okay.
it was a Friday through Sunday event with all groups sharing the Saturday experience. And that was, it was held at the Rio, and there was a large kind of conference room reserved for this event. So when somebody checked in, there was a table of silent auction items, and I can tell you a little bit about that later
Yes.
as we get into this. There was a pop-up shop, or just a retail shop that had some old, some new, mostly newer stuff, and there was a bar, and then the stage was set up, and then they had curtained off an area which was served as backstage for the artists, and then also those were the areas where people would have their meet and greets when they opened up the base case to get their stuff. So everybody who signed up, we all shared that experience on Saturday, which culminated in the show. which was phenomenal. And then depending on when you signed up, Mike, some people had their meet and greets and dinner with Gene Friday, and
Okay.
some people had their meet and greets on Saturday, which was the original plan. So my wife and I had Saturday as our time with Gene,
Right.
and then the second dinner was Sunday night. So we took part in that. So really a 3-day thing, but each of the groups had 2 days of activity over that period.
That's all. So now, and we'll talk about some of the different activities in more detail. So then the Friday, is it just like hanging out with the different people who were there? It sounds like Gene was there. So what was going on Friday?
So we weren't part of the Friday Gene activities.
Okay.
We actually went out to dinner and we saw Rod Stewart, who was in town. So
Okay. Nice.
which wasn't bad. It was, although it was more of a Broadway show and a Vegas type show than a rock show.
Yep.
But it was pretty good, and so we did that Friday. But some of the people who signed up later, I don't know if it was the second group or third group, during Friday afternoon, they had their one-on-one times with Gene and got their case and pictures and all that on Friday. And then some of those folks, maybe all of them, had a Friday night dinner with Gene that most of us weren't part of.
Gotcha. Okay. Now you've mentioned the case a few times. It's one of the things I was a little bit aware of, right? So I think he's given you guys are all given a guitar case, and then inside is memorabilia from his personal collection. And if I'm not mistaken, help me here with this, prior to the event, you were able to see different packages or different merchandise options, and you were able to choose which one you wanted based on when you signed up. Is that correct?
Uh, Partially, that was
Okay.
the plan at
Okay.
one point. But it didn't come to fruition in part because when they announced that, they thought it would be 30 cases and you would choose based on the order in which you booked your package.
Right.
But when it got a little larger, it was probably unmanageable to have,
Sure.
however, I don't know the ultimate number, the final number of people, but it would have probably been unmanageable to have somebody look through those, choose, then go to the next person in a timely fashion. So we did not know what was in our individual cases. And there were a few screenshots that were shared throughout the process, like little teasers, like, hey, this could be yours or this could be in yours. But as far as I know, nobody found out what was in their case until the moment they opened it with Gene.
Oh, wow. So, all right. So then let's talk about that. So the Saturday, I think, is when you said you had your meet and greet with Gene. Now you've already met Gene in the past. I know the vault, depending on where you were in the country, the meet and greet was like 2 minutes long. On the cruise, I've done 10, 15-minute experiences with him. How long was the meet and greet with him at this event?
I would say 10 to 15 minutes.
Nice.
And Mike, the vault experience that my wife and I attended was in Detroit, and it was the second vault. So the first was at
Nice.
Capitol Records in
Yep.
Los Angeles. And then there were 2 nights for the vault in Detroit downtown it was held at the John Varvatos store. So we went to night number 1 in Detroit, which was the second overall. So I think we got a little bit more time with Gene than
Yes.
did those who, attended subsequent events. So,
Yeah, I was in
but
New York, and I was probably like the 10th or 15th one, and they literally had a 2-minute timer on us. Literally a
yeah,
timer.
that's unfortunate because I
Yeah.
think sometimes people purchase based on the feedback they hear from prior events. So, and I know nobody wants to not exceed or meet expectations, but if people thought, hey, the people in Detroit had 10 or 15 or so minutes with Gene and I got 2, you might feel a little slighted.
And I didn't, because I had met Gene a number of times in the past. So, I didn't feel slighted, but I understand why others might have. But I always thought that was not a Gene thing, that it was probably something whoever was organizing and controlling. I mean, obviously Gene has final say, but every other time I've ever done a Gene meet and greet, it was 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. So to hear that he's doing that in this doesn't surprise me. And I'm happy to hear that he was taking time with the fans in Vegas.
Yeah, it was great. And I'll tell you one quick story about the vault in Detroit, Mike. I booked that fairly early. I think they had a promotion when it was announced. If you bought the package before Thanksgiving, you got a phone call from Gene.
Yep.
And I did. And back then I had 2 cell phones. I was that guy. So I was able to talk to Gene on one with speakerphone and record it with the other.
Yep.
And our phone conversation was probably almost 10 minutes. It was probably 7 to 10 minutes. It wasn't rushed. And it was great. He told some stories. And so that was an added bonus from my vault experience. I got to actually talk to him on the phone prior.
It's funny that you bring that up, because I had that experience. I recorded it and I have no clue where my recording is. And I got to think about that. So,
oh, gosh.
I forgot about that. You're right. I got the phone call from him, and I was at work. I ran into like a private room and gee, what did I do with that recording? All right, now you've given me homework for tonight. But let's go back to your Vegas meet and greet. So just talk about what the meet and greet was like and what that was, what that experience was for you.
So everybody, you had a buyer number, which corresponded to the order in which you purchased the package. And so we were 21, lucky 21. And so they were getting, it was, there's some disorganization to these events as much as they try to be structured, just because it's a fluid thing and you never know, is Gene scheduling 10 minutes and taking 15 or so forth. So
Sure.
they were kind of bringing people back into this curtained off area in groups of 7 to 10, and there was a long row of, say, 10 or so folding tables. Each one had a case sitting on it in numerical order. So they brought everybody back and you would stand by your case and Gene would work his way down to you with a professional videographer and Christina, who you might know her. She works for Gene and it was her
Yep.
event. So, and they're taking pictures and working their way down. So we weren't that first group to go back. So we were hanging out, just talking with everybody, which to me was fine because,
Sure.
again, this is our community. These are our people. This is our crowd, right? So,
Absolutely.
so
Nice
we
reference
were,
there. I got it.
yeah, we enjoyed talking to everybody. So then they finally call us back, and we were actually adjacent to some of our friends who we knew in line. So that was kind of fun. And that was also the seating chart for the show, was the order in which you bought them. So we knew the people next to us, which was cool.
Right.
So we waited for a while, and then Gene came up, and I'll preface this. This is one of my funny stories I wanted to
Yeah.
share. So I had they were pretty strict about bringing just 2 items to get signed, which is fine, and but I brought a third item, which was an 8x10 of my wife and I with Gene at the Detroit Vault, and it's printed out on an 8x10, and so I wrote to Gene, thanks for everything, gratitude, Doyle Roush, and then my wife signed it. So after he signed everything, I handed it to him. So I said, well, here, you gave me yours, here's mine. So I actually gave Gene Simmons my autograph.
Oh, that's great. Hopefully it didn't
And
end up in case number 75.
yeah, I hope not. That would bring the value down for sure.
That's
But
great.
he smiled and laughed, and I'm sure he threw it away or something. But at least it makes a good story for me. So I did
That
in
is
fact
hilarious.
give
I
Gene
love
my
it.
autograph.
That is great. Now, I just want to pause for a moment here because you mentioned Christina, and anybody who's done these events know that Christina and Patrick are the two that usually run these, and top-notch people. I mean, and we'll talk to see if you went to the mini golf thing in Vegas also, but I just want to acknowledge them and just what a tremendous job they do at all of these events. They've got obviously a very demanding boss. We know that. And they always run these things. It might not be picture perfect. Nothing in life ever is, but they run these things better, in my opinion, than anybody ever could. And they make these experiences, in my opinion, an A+ experience.
Absolutely. Everything you just said was true. And there was a larger group helping too. There were some volunteers who staffed, for example, the silent auction and the cash out table. And they were offering shipping of your case back to you,
Okay. Mm-hmm.
and the people taking care of that, and the pop-up shop. So I think there were other volunteers, but yes, Christina and Patrick, very nice people, very professional, gave an awful lot and made, sacrificed a lot of their time and effort to make this come true for a lot of people. And I think everybody feels the same way. We're all just very thankful for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, so you're with Gene, he presents you the case and it's got your items in it. And I didn't ask you this beforehand, so you could say as much or as little as you want to about what was in the case. I'm going to respect if you want to keep that between you and Gene, right? But when you open the case, let me just ask you this. Are you happy with what's in there first?
Absolutely.
Excellent.
It was a great mix of stuff. And so I took a picture of everything on my phone, not
Okay.
everything, but most things. But I created a list just so I could tell you all the things that were in mine.
That is awesome,
And
because you did send me a picture of one thing and I was like, that is freaking cool, but I didn't want to put you on the spot if you didn't want to share. So go ahead, read it off. I'm
yeah,
curious.
I'll run down some of the contents of my case. So he kind of opens it up and just pulls each thing out, tells you about it. And many of the items in the case were also signed by
Hmm.
Gene, and each one has kind of a gold stamp of that reads something like from the personal collection of Gene Simmons, like an embossed gold stamp on everything,
Sure.
which is pretty cool. So the highlight, which is what I sent to you, was I have Gene's original Elder costume concept sketch that he signed for me. And again, it's in the case, so I didn't have it. I do have a few
Hmm.
things I can show everybody,
Okay.
but that was one of the cool things. And I
Now,
have
was that a
the,
sketch that he did himself?
yes, yep,
I mean, right off the top, that's worth the price of admission alone, right? You got an artwork of a outfit that he wore, original, signed by him.
yeah.
I mean,
It's fantastic. It's got the, sketch. It's the a couple angles sketched, and he points out, okay, this is chrome, this is leather, this is whatever, and a description in the margins. And so, yeah, and it's signed. So that was, I just blew my mind.
of
That blew my
course.
mind when I saw it. So that was, and a lot of this stuff really is one of a kind. Almost all of it, frankly, not
Right.
everything, but most is. Um, then the next thing I have it's probably a 12 by 12 color glossy test shot for the back of Animalize. So it's very similar to the back of the album where the four of them are standing, but people are in different order. Like Mark St. John is
Oh,
here and
wow.
Paul's here, and it's real glossy, and it's a one of a kind test print. Glossy color, very nice, and he signed that too. So that was neat.
And I'll
Um,
just share a little personal thing here for a moment. I had in the 80s two dungaree jackets with paintings of Kiss things on the back, right? That was things you did in the 80s. And my first one was the back of the Animalized jacket. I love that photo.
yeah, it's a
Love
classic,
that.
and
Yes, that's a great. So that's a cool thing just to have an outtake from that also. 12 by 12.
absolutely.
Nice. Very nice.
Yep.
Are you gonna frame that and hang that in the house or
I think
save it?
so. Yeah, I have, like many of us, I have a what was typically a Buckeye room with, I have Heisman footballs and helmets and all that and big color pictures, but it's starting to become a hybrid room. And I think after this, it might be a Kiss room. So we'll have
There
to
you
wait and
go.
see.
Oh, that's great. All right. So go ahead. What else? I cut you off there. So what else?
So everybody got some sort of an item that Gene wore at some point. So we have a bow tie, black bow tie that probably went with one of his tuxedos that was in there.
Mm-hmm.
We have a video reel from one of the Kiss conventions. Now, I don't know if it's a commercial. It's not a videotape, but it's a box with what looks like the old reel to reel audio things, but it's videotape.
Oh,
And it could be a commercial that they shot. It could be a little bit of footage, and it has the agency that did it on the front. It's just a nondescript white box. And so he talked a little bit about that. And I'm like, well, that's pretty cool. I may take it to a camera shop, and have it converted into video so I can see what it is.
sure. Of course. That's what I'm like. There's anybody who knows me knows I have easily 10,000 audio and video bootlegs. So I hear something
Wow.
like that. I'm like, ooh, that sounds cool.
Yeah.
That's right up there with the Elder drawing to me. That's awesome.
It's pretty, yeah. A couple people had similar things who I talked to, but I don't think everybody got that, but a few did.
That's awesome.
Um, I have a vintage 90s unworn Revenge concert shirt, which my wife immediately put on and thinks it's hers, but that's not going to happen.
So it's now one, but okay.
Yes, yes, that's true. It is.
That's okay.
One of the cool things, Mike, was a one of the larger pages that were inserted into the history books, and this one was signed by everybody but Paul. So Gene,
Hmm.
Ace, and Peter. And he was like, "Well, we did a bunch of these, sent them to the printer, but Paul forgot to sign them, so they sent them back." So a few people got those pages, but I believe like it was in Peter's might have been in green or maybe they were all in black, but it's a pretty nice piece with
That is
everybody's
cool.
original 90s signatures except Paul.
Right. Wow. Nice.
So that was cool. I also got a Detroit Rock City promotional artwork piece, one of a kind, that was a design that Gene came up with that he signed. And it looks a little bit like one of the Star Wars photos where like Luke's kind of holding the lightsaber up. The four teenagers are kind of on a peak and the Kiss faces are in the sky and it's
Hmm.
dark. So that was pretty cool. Again, one of a kind thing. I think there were several rejected concept photos for that,
Right.
so
Wow.
there are some others of those floating around too.
That is
Um,
cool.
we got a set of Gene's personal headphones, which he used to take on trips. They're silver and kind of big, but
Hmm.
probably '90s era, and
Wow. Okay.
that was a cool item. And then there's similar to the vault. These base cases have a little compartment that you flip up where
Yep.
there's a key and you can actually lock them. But a handful, probably 10 or 11 various backstage passes, Psycho Circus, Alive 35,
Hmm.
some 2000 era stuff, a couple of unused Kiss balloons that are, I don't believe they're from End of the Road because they're smaller, but they're pink and red or various colors, but they must have used them at some point. So those were pretty cool. And see a couple other things. I got a Psycho Circus album flat that was used for a promotional campaign in the stores. So it's like a cardboard. It's like the size of an album, but it's not. You can't insert anything in. It's just a flat piece. That was a little unusual, but again, I couldn't be happier with that stuff.
Oh
Half
yeah.
of it, more than half of it, was signed. There's a 1981 Australia flip calendar in there, which is cool,
Oh
which shows
wow.
Peter, which is odd.
Uh-huh. Right,
Um,
from 81. Wow. Okay.
and then, so there's a. I'm not going to say whose vaults these or whose cases these came out of, but here's a couple other items that some of my friends got. One person got a set of 1980 Australia Kiss Carnival mirrors with all the members on them.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand, and they're in a case or a white frame, and Gene signed his. And they actually had a couple of those in the pop up shop. And a friend explained that they produced these prior to the tour, and then they found out Peter wasn't there, so they threw a lot of them out. So very few actually survived.
Yep.
So that is a pretty cool gift. And this person got all four of them.
I saw somebody, I saw that person posted online, and I was like,
Yes.
and then I saw the Gene one signed by him. I'm like, and they were perfect mint condition. I'm like, holy crap, that is a freaking awesome gift.
Yes, that was amazing. Another friend who I just met got in his a leather pad folio from I think 75 or 76. I think I didn't see it. He was telling me about it. I think it has a Kiss logo embossed on it, but inside were a handful of letters that Bill Aucoin wrote Gene. So original
Wow.
handwritten letters in a pad folio, like it was taken out of the Casablanca office or something.
Wow.
So a
That's
lot of
awesome.
the and every case had certainly half one of a kind unique items.
And that's what I'm taking from you telling me this, because I did the vault experience, and fans know that there were gifts inside the vault. And some of them were cool, and some of them were okay at best. Right? I happened to get an Australian jacket that was still sealed or whatever from 1980. So that was a pretty cool gift. But I know other people who were disappointed with the things they got. But what you're talking about getting in this guitar case are one of a kind, high end collectibles here. We're not talking about your run of the mill stuff that you could buy at Spencer's. This is, I mean, you can't get better. I mean, you're telling me about all these, and I'm like, yeah, I want that Elder thing. That would be great. That would be the one I want. Oh, the Bill Aucoin letters would be really cool. Oh, those mirrors would be really cool. It's like, it sounds like everybody got something that was really top shelf here.
Yeah, I think the worst thing in the case was you'd still be happy with for the most
Right.
part. Like the backstage passes, that's just a bonus. They have a bunch of
Right.
those, so everybody got a smattering of those. But um, yeah, I was pleased with all my stuff. Couple other things. Somebody got a original Gene solo LP from '78 sealed still. I don't know if it was a
Hmm.
promo or not, but it was sealed.
Hmm.
That's pretty cool.
Yep.
A couple people got robes. So one was from the Psycho Circus tour, and Gene signed it. It's
Mm-hmm.
black with silver on. It was cloth, so the signature's not great, but and that person was going to wear it to dinner and then decided not to. I'm like,
Yeah.
hey, there's soup on the menu. I'm not sure I'd bring
Really,
that
you don't
in
want
and
to
wear it
spill
to
anything on
dinner.
that.
Right.
Right.
So I think everybody to a person was very pleased with the contents of their case. And there were two types of cases, Mike. One has sort of Gene's face on half of it. That was the
Okay.
one I got. And he signed all the cases on the outside. And it says it's branded with like Gene Simmons axe base on one
Yep.
end.
It's
And
a
then the
hard
other
shell
one is,
case, right? A hard shell
yes,
case. Yeah. All right. I know
yep.
what you're talking about. Yeah.
And the second case, which some people had, was just all black, more of a square case that had in Kiss font in silver Gene Simmons
Hmm.
printed on it with a chrome outline on the black. Looked more, like a stage used type case. But I think all these were used. There was stuff on them,
Right.
scuffs, marks, and things like that. So,
Right.
but yeah, and it was. I'm glad they had shipping service available
Mm-hmm.
because I was trying to conceptualize how am I going to get this on the plane. I don't want to entrust this with the luggage agents. And I'm like, gosh, do I have to buy 10 rolls of bubble wrap and packing tape and
Mm-hmm.
just wrap it up? So the shipping service was a nice touch for people who didn't drive to the event.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Christina has done that on the cruises. If you do the meet and greets and you buy a guitar or bass there, and again, it's always just top notch. They take care of it. It arrives at the house usually for me within the week or whatever. So it's just another example of their top service that they provide. But one of the things I'm taking away from what you're saying from even just this part of the event so far is you go online and look, this is the way life is, right? Some people, oh, this is the greatest thing that Gene does this for fans, and other people trash the event when meanwhile they weren't even there. But I always say this, I don't care if it's a Gene Simmons vault, if it's this Vegas thing, if it's a meet and greet on the cruise, if it's the Vinnie Vincent events, whatever it is, they're not for everybody, right? These are not meant for everybody. And even some of the biggest, most diehard fans, this is not for them. And that's okay. But I always say this, those who go have the time of their life. And that's what I'm hearing from you right now is everybody, we haven't even spoken about the concert or anything else, the dinner. All we've spoken about so far is the meet and greet. And you're already, to me, portraying that the people who are there are excited and happy and feel like they're getting value for what they paid for.
Yes, no question. It was just before the dinner and even meeting some of everybody else, like the show itself was phenomenal, and I'd have been happy with seeing that show. Then the meet and greet was itself amazing, and the dinner was just off the charts, way more than I think any of us expected. And yeah, the whole thing phenomenal.
So let's save the dinner for the end, right? So that's the meet. Was there anything else from the meet and greet that you think that we should cover?
No, not really. I met a few of the other people who worked for Gene, and again, they came around. My wife wore a microphone for our time with Gene, so
Smart.
the videographer is getting sound and video. And the one thing we didn't do was have someone take pictures on our phone
Wow.
because Christina was there. She goes, "I got it." I was like, "Can you take?" So some people who had extras got photos immediately to share on social media. It's
Right.
not that important to me, but the pictures we'll get from Christina are going to be great and taken with a
Absolutely.
higher quality camera. So I didn't get the immediate rush of sharing and texting pictures with Gene, but we got plenty of other candid shots with all the artists and everything for the whole weekend. But that was one thing I probably would have done over again. But yeah, the professional shot video is going to be shared with everybody. I think we'll get a link, and I'm sure it will contain concert footage and some of Gene's, very heartfelt sharing with the fans before the band show, which I'll tell you about when we get to it. But yeah, the meet and greet was very well done. We didn't have to wait that long. I think the most, depending on when you bought the package, Mike, and what your number was, you might have had to wait, an hour or 2 hours before to get
Yeah.
your meet and greet. But not that's not even horrible. I mean, any event like
Yeah.
this, even the vault, I think my wife and I waited an hour before we were called. So
And there's a difference between waiting online for an hour or two to ride a roller coaster at Great Adventure and you just stand there waiting and waiting, as opposed to spending an hour or two with a bunch of Kiss fans. Like you said, people, you're hanging out, you're talking, an hour or two goes by like that.
it really does. Yep,
Yeah.
for sure.
To me, that's a whole part of the experience. So that never bothers me in those situations because you're, like you said, there's a lot of people from the cruises that sound like they're at this Vegas event. So you're reconnecting with people that you haven't seen and the time just goes by. And that's all part of the fun and part of the experience to me.
I agree, 100%.
So you mentioned the show. So when the show was that Saturday night at this point?
It was Saturday afternoon.
Oh, so
So
wow. Okay.
yeah, so Saturday again was the common day, and the conference room or the convention hall opened, I think, at 10 in the morning, with the pop up shop open, and they said Gene will be here, around noon. So
Mm-hmm.
we got there around 11 and perused the silent auction table of some really unique things, which I'll tell you about, and then the pop up shop, and got coffee, and we're just kind of hanging around. So originally they had asked for joke submissions, and they were the best ones. You were going to get to tell your joke on stage, and I did tell my joke to Gene at dinner, but they didn't have that as part of the event. But this guy, the mentalist, opened up a little bit. His name was Jerry McCambridge, the mentalist,
Okay.
and he had at one point a TV show, and he has a long running Vegas show. So it's kind of like a magic trick type stuff. And he was very good. And I might miss this story a little bit, but I think his mom knew Gene's mom back in the day. And then he somehow met Gene. And then very early on in his career, Gene and Paul helped him with how to be a professional, how to market your brand, how
Hmm.
to put together, a packet and create your act and your show. So he's
Wow.
been a fan and a friend for a while. So he came out and did some really interesting magic tricks, mind reading type stuff with the group. And that was really fun. And then Gene came. I don't know the exact timeline, Mike. Gene was probably on stage around 12:30 or 1. And so
Oh,
he
wow.
talked for probably 20 minutes before the band came out. And he spoke from the heart. Um, he talked a little bit about his genuine appreciation for the fans, and how we work for you, he says. You know,
Hmm.
you've
Hmm.
heard that all over and
Of
over.
course. Yep.
And his appreciation, and just that he's getting older, and one of the reasons he wanted to do this was so that fans who really cared can have some of this stuff, that when he passes, that there's so much of it, as we all know, and he
Sure.
really wanted to get it into the hands of people who care about it, which is
Mm-hmm.
us. So that was really nice. He also talked about um, respect for women and treating women with, kindly, or like your mother and your sister and all this. And, there's all kinds of psychological reasons probably why he's doing that, but
Yeah.
it was
I'm thinking that
nevertheless.
as you're saying, I'm like, whoa, how the decades have changed him. Yeah.
Yes. So, but I thought it was certainly nice. And again, it was
Mhm.
heartfelt. There wasn't anything phony about it, which
Yep.
it was nice. He talked a lot about work ethic and, work hard. You can accomplish anything, figure out what you want to do, be unique, all that. You can do anything. And then he talked a little bit about why When You Wish Upon a Star was on his solo album. And he talked about being a little kid in New York, and he kind of, mimicked his, accent that he had when he came to this country, and kids would make fun of him. And he went to the movie theater and saw, I don't know if it was Pinocchio or something else, but he said this little cricket came out, Jiminy Cricket,
Mhm.
and said, "When you wish upon a star, your dreams will come true." And he felt like Jiminy Cricket was talking just to him, and he felt special, and he felt like he could do anything. And there were people crying in the audience. The my friend, I won't share her name, but a friend from another country was sitting next to my wife, and she teared up, and it was just a beautiful moment, really. And most of us know the history of Gene, and he's the American dream for all intents and purposes. But that was a
Absolutely.
really nice story that a lot of fans probably didn't know, and just sharing that was a beautiful moment.
Yeah. And you know what? One of the things I loved when he did the solo tour in what, 2017, 2018 time period. And one of my holy grail videos I've been searching for and I can't find is there was one night on that tour he actually closed with When You Wish Upon a Star,
Wow.
which a lot of Kiss fans don't even realize that he actually performed it one night on that solo tour. There's no video. I was talking to Jerry Asbrock once. He's like, Mike, if you find a video, burn it. It was a train wreck. So it's funny. But didn't he actually, because I thought I saw somebody share, didn't he actually sing part of the song? I don't know if it was part of the concert or what, but he actually sang part of When You Wish Upon a Star over the weekend as
Uh,
well, right?
yeah, a couple lines. Yeah.
That's
And
awesome.
it was really great. And he also he threw in some jokes here and there. And so, for example, he said, "I know Paul likes to claim he wrote Strutter, but I really wrote it." And so people were laughing about that.
Yep.
And during the set, he stopped a couple times and he's like, "Oh, I forgot the words to this." When
Mm-hmm.
they were in the middle of a jam, they not a full song, but
Right.
and he also said Christine 16 can't do that anymore. It's now Christine 60.
Yep. Yep.
so,
Absolutely. Right.
so I
Oh,
thought
that's
that
good.
was funny.
That's great. So now I mentioned Jeremy Asbrock and the Nashville guys were obviously part of his band when he toured in 2017-18 time period. Those are not the guys that performed with him this time. And we know that there were special guests, and we'll talk about those in a moment. But I know it was Todd Kearns. Do you know who else was in the band with him?
Yeah, so Brent Fitz on drums, and those guys. I mean, I've seen those guys probably three times. They were at the Indie Kiss Expo in 2018 with Fraley's Comet and that crew and Lita Ford, and then they were, of course, at Creatures Fest in Nashville. And then, so those guys were there. And then the guitarist who I didn't know was Brent Woods,
Okay.
who I
Yeah.
think has played with some other bands. He's really good lead guitarist. So that was the core band, and then there were some other guests, which if you want to talk about it, you can, or if you want to get to that later, we can.
Yeah. No, no. So let's talk. So going into this event, did you know that there were going to be because again, I tried to stay away from details beforehand. Did you know there was going to be some of these special guests beforehand?
Uh, yeah, some of the posts from Christina and others said there'll be some surprises, and
Okay.
you'll be pleased with who they were, and so certainly your mind starts racing. You're like,
Of
wow,
course.
who's in town? Who could it be? And so I thought perhaps that Bruce would play because I know he lives in Las Vegas, and of course Bruce did come out for most of the show. And Eric Singer came out. Now I had forgotten Eric moved from LA to Vegas, so that would have natural for him to join. So
Yep.
he came out as well. He didn't play as long. I think he played maybe three or four songs, and I've got the set list. He sang one, and but then he jumped back off, and Brent came back to beat the Skins a little bit, and Bruce stayed on stage for the second half of the show.
Right. Yeah. It's easier, I guess, when you're the guitar player because you could have 2, 3, 4, 10 guitar players if you want on stage at once. It's harder when there's only one drum set on the stage. Of course, fans want to see Eric Singer play, but in all due respect to Brent Fitz, he's the guy that was hired to do the show and he should be up there playing as well. So it sounds like it
Yeah.
was a fair balance between the two of them.
Yeah, and I felt the musicianship from everyone was really good. And a friend pointed out to me, I hadn't thought of this, hearing Kiss songs with three guitars is different and interesting. And so
Yeah.
I think that added a little extra element to the songs and the performance, which was in a good way.
Sure. So you said you have the set list in front of you. Why don't we read that off so that this way people know what they played?
Sure. So they opened with Plaster Caster, which is they play that at sound check a lot, and so
Yep.
Gene's familiar with that, and it lends itself to a smaller setting too. And I think
Sure.
one of the goals was probably not to just play God of Thunder, shout it out loud, all that. You want fans like us who go to these specialized things want the deeper cuts, and for the most part, they delivered a lot of that.
And that's what Gene
So,
delivered. That's why I loved his solo tour that he did before the end of the road tours. He delivered on deep cuts all the time. So I love that that's where he was going with the show. So continue.
yep. So open with Plaster Caster, and then into Charisma, which was pretty good, and then Domino, which not all the lyrics were correct on that, and it was funny before the show started, Mike, somebody had these large, maybe 24 by 36 poster boards with lyrics written on them. And so they, rather than have, a telestrator or something, the lyrics for Gene were on these, but then people wouldn't pull them off in time and all that. But that's all part of live music, and it was fine. And,
Yeah.
nobody cares.
That never
Uh,
phases me at all. That's like you said, that's all part of live music. So that whatever. That is
yep.
what it is. Now, the first two songs, I will assume, correct me if I'm wrong, did not include Bruce and Eric Singer, but I'm going to guess they came out for Domino, the third song.
I believe that's when they came on. Yep.
Yeah.
And
All
you're
right.
correct that, yeah. So Domino was next. Then Nothing to Lose, which Eric sang,
Yeah.
which was pretty good. And then there were a couple jams throughout the show. So one was Money with the bass line,
Hmm.
and another was Honky Tonk Woman by the Stones. They played
Yeah.
probably 30, 40 seconds of that. I actually thought they were going to play it, and I was excited about it because I'm a huge Stones guy.
Sure.
So there were these kind of intermittent jams from time to time, but so the set list so far is Plaster Caster, Charisma, Domino, Nothing to Lose, and then they Going Blind, which
Yep.
Gene talked a little bit about, and he's like, Paul said, "Why don't you add I'm 93, you're 16?" And so what does that mean?
Right.
So a little joke for people, but that was a pretty good rendition of that song. And then for me, the highlight of the show were the next two songs, "Watching You" and "Deuce." Were amazing. Deuce is my favorite Kiss song anyway. And
Mhm.
so the energy and rawness of that, and I mean, at the end, I jumped out of my seat and I was like, yeah,
Right. Right. Yeah. 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 Deuce is probably one of my top three Kiss songs, also. So I'm always excited to hear that.
yeah, it was so good. The solos were on point, and they even did the stage move,
Yep.
toward the end and the whole thing. And so those two together, I was like, man, that's worth the whole thing.
Right. And now for all those songs, Bruce is still on stage with them.
Yeah, Bruce stayed on for the balance of the show.
Wow. So he joined on Domino, the third song, if I got it right, and stayed for the
Yep.
rest of the show. That's awesome.
That's correct. And I
That is
and
awesome.
I don't remember exactly when Eric went off, but probably after two or three songs, something like
Okay.
that.
Nice.
So Watching You Induce, then Radioactive, which was
Mm.
seldom played, and that
Yep.
was interesting. Then Gene, I've seen him do this on other events. He asked for four females to come on stage,
Yep.
and they did "I Was Made for Loving You" with the girls kind of singing, and that was kind of fun, participatory, and
So I saw a set list and I was wondering who sang I Was Made for Love, and I just assumed it was Todd. So it wasn't Todd, it was these four girls that came up on stage.
yeah, it was kind of a mix, because
Hey.
they they weren't in some cases close enough to the microphone, so he's like, get closer, you couldn't hear. So it was really, it was fine, it was fun for them, but it wasn't the highlight of the show by
Hey.
any means.
Well, I'll say this. When I saw Gene's solo tour that I've referenced a few times now, I saw that I think 7 times. And I was at the first show in Cleveland that he did. And he did the same thing. He brought, a bunch of women up on the stage to sing background vocals or whatever. And I'm like, that's a little cheesy. Well, by the 6th or 7th time I saw him, he was doing one song guys, one song girls. And of course, I ran up on the stage and enjoyed
Yeah.
when he said it was just a lot of fun. And I'm like, you know what? That's what I like about these shows that Gene does. They're kind of loose and they're fun and they don't need to be perfect. And he's not pretending that they're perfect. They all rehearsed, but they're just fun. So yeah, it might not be the highlight of the show, but I can tell you for those four women that were up on stage, they will probably remember that for the rest of their lives.
Absolutely. And I had just met a couple of them who went up on stage, so we were able to talk about it afterwards. So, I mean, good for them. That was great. If I was selected, I certainly would have gone up on stage. And other people might have said, "Oh, this guy was up there and he wasn't any good." But for me, it would have been fun, you know. So good for
Exactly.
them.
Absolutely agree, 100%.
Yep. So that was good. Then they closed with, in this order, Christine 60, Unholy, and then
Oh
Let Me
wow,
Go. Let Me
wow,
Go
okay,
Rock and Roll, which was amazing. And that jam with a few more guitars on stage was pretty good. And so it sounded awesome. And you know, this isn't the type of show where they go off and then come back for encores. They just
right.
ended the set with Let Me Go Rock and Roll.
So, and maybe I'm just not remembering when I saw the set list. I didn't remember seeing "Unholy" on the printed set list. Was it the full song that they did?
Most of it, yeah,
Nice, nice. That's awesome. So,
yeah,
I mean, it sounds like he was on stage for at least an hour.
yeah. I think so. Maybe a little, yeah, what 15 or so songs, something like that.
Nice. So it's basically a full show that you got.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's awesome.
And
Because I got
yeah, no, I was just gonna say again, the musicianship was good, and right in the middle, the just the rawness, the something about just plugging in and playing, almost like I envisioned when Ace auditioned for the band. You know, plugged in, played Deuce. It was just kind of raw, in your face, and awesome, fun.
right. And now this was in the hotel ballroom that the concert took place, right?
Yep, yep.
All right. And I saw pictures. It looked like everybody had like an assigned seat. Now you were referencing this before, I guess, based on when you booked. But what I liked about it is it didn't seem like it was like where everybody was crowded in. It looked like people had a little bit of space and you were able to really see and enjoy the show.
Yes, that's true. There weren't. I don't know the exact head count, Mike, from the show. I was trying to think of a number to share with you. Probably, I mean, a little more than 100, but you know, not much more. And some people got up, and so it was kind of interesting. We were sitting next to people, and they were like, "Let's stand up right off the bat." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's an older crowd. I didn't want to, as much as I would prefer to do that, I didn't think it was the right venue for that. So nobody really stood, at least during the songs. But people who wanted to got up and went to the sides and danced
Nice.
and stood. And they had some cabaret tables on one side, so people could watch the show standing if they wanted to, but
Mm-hmm.
they were pretty respectful not to block the views of anybody else. I mean, there were some older folks and some kids and people who couldn't get up and all that. So it
Mm-hmm.
was, but like I said, after Deuce, I jumped up out of my chair and I was like, yeah,
It's just a natural reaction at that point.
yes, it was.
Right. And you know what? I'll say this, and your perception of the number of people there is probably very close to accurate. I saw a picture taken from like behind the back of the ballroom, and it just had all the seats, and the stage was empty. There was nobody on stage. And it looked like the last row I saw seats number 113, 114. So to your point, it's probably about 100 people. And I have to think just seeing Gene performing in a setting like that with only 100, 120 people, that in and of itself is a cool experience.
No question about it. I mean, it was really great. Now, what was interesting about we didn't get I didn't get good pictures of the show, and we were in the third row on the aisle. Again, amazing seats, probably 10, 12 feet from 15 feet from the stage. Do you remember for Ace and Peter's show, they had these kind of red and purple lights at Creatures Fest?
Yep.
And it was very difficult to get a good picture, even though it was a small
Yes.
venue. They had sort of a similar color scheme, so I got a few good pictures, but the red and purple lighting, even though I was close, it somehow messes with your camera, at least my
Mm-hmm.
cell phone. So I didn't get great pictures,
Yep.
but and that's okay. It's not a big deal. But I'm
Right.
just noting that color light doesn't lend itself to taking concert photos.
Yeah, I've run into that problem a number of times, whether it's photos or video. Some of those color lights could just wash out the video, wash out your pictures, but who cares? It's still a freaking
Yeah,
amazing experience. Yeah.
yeah, but not even a small problem. It's just an observation, really, from my perspective. But yeah, the show was awesome. It was really good.
That is great. So now you still, that's not it. So to me, just those things, the meet and greet, the show, it sounds like it's a load of fun, but you still have what is probably one of the highlights, and that's the dinner. So is the dinner Saturday night at that point?
It was Sunday night.
Sunday night. All right. So from the show on Saturday, before we talk about the dinner, from the show on Saturday to the dinner on Sunday, is it like you have free time to kind of go around and do what you want to do, mingle and hang out
Yep.
with people?
Yeah. So we ended up going to dinner at Hell's Kitchen, the Gordon Ramsay place, which was very good,
Hmm.
and just kind of bopped around. We had some other friends from back home who were out there for other things, so there was no coordinated activity. We since we saw Rod Stewart the night before, we didn't go to a show or anything like that.
Sure.
But yeah, it was fun. And then Sunday was the big one.
So Sunday, is it, because I keep saying evening, but is it a lunchtime meal? Is it a dinner time meal? What time did the meal take place?
So it was 6:30 arrival,
Okay.
and it was at Voodoo Steakhouse, which is on the 50th floor of the Rio. So they had a patio. We took some great pictures with like the strip in the background, and really nice, really great views all the way around. And it's a kind of a two-sided restaurant or a horseshoe. So some people were on the left side and others on the right, and there was kind of a bar
Mhm.
in the middle. And I think there's a club upstairs, a nightclub that wasn't open during this. So
Okay.
uh, we lucked out, Mike. We were right next to the Rockstar table, which is
Oh,
where
wow.
we had some guests at dinner who weren't at the show, which I'll get to in a minute. But
Yep.
we had a four top booth. It was my wife Jenny and me and my buddy Gresso and his girlfriend Heather who joined us. They were first timers, and we
Mhm.
were like maybe 6 feet from the Rockstar table. So we and we met Gene relatively early on. He did his table touch with us fairly early on in the evening, which was great. But yeah, it was very nice. It was kind of a darker steakhouse type of feel, and each booth or table had a candle.
Oh,
You see
wow.
that?
Yeah, I hadn't seen any pictures of that. That's cool.
Yep. This is the red version. There was also a white version, and Eric Singer gave us this one because there were extras. So we gave the white one to my buddy who sat at our table to take.
That's awesome.
And then you probably saw this, but each diner got this plate.
I had dinner with Gene Simmons. I mean, that's awesome.
It's a smaller plate. I don't know if you could tell that it's more of a salad type plate
Okay.
size. But those were at every individual diner got that, even though each table had only one candle.
Okay.
Uh, so that was pretty cool. I have a couple things for show and tell. This is what the lanyard looked like for the weekend.
Very cool.
And you can't see it on here, but I'm sorry, Bruce and one of the special guests from dinner, Tommy Thayer, signed this, but it doesn't show up.
Hmm.
Eric signed the other side in green paint pen. That shows up pretty
That shows
good.
up nicely. Very nice.
So that was the lanyard, but yeah, it was all the tables had that stuff laid out, and the same videographer was there working the room, and Gene had a table touch with everybody, and probably 10 minutes at our table with just the five of us, and I got to tell Gene the joke that I submitted that wasn't part of the activity, and he told us a joke at the table, which was
Okay.
great,
Now, do you
and
want to share the joke with the viewers and listeners, or will you keep that between you and Gene?
I'll share it. It's a little risque, but it's not rated X or anything like that,
Okay. And
really.
you don't have to if you don't want to.
I'll throw it out there, and
Yeah.
if some people will give a Bronx cheer for it, and others might enjoy it. So,
There you go.
you set it up and pick someone. So Gene and I were walking down the street in Vegas yesterday, and we were looking for a place to have lunch. And we were off the strip, so there's this little tiny hole in the wall cafe, and the sign outside says HJ's Cafe. So Gene and I look at each other, and we go in. And on the wall, there's a menu, and it reads hamburger, $10, cheeseburger, $20, hand job, $50. So there's nobody in the joint, and there's this beautiful, voluptuous blonde woman working behind the counter. So we walk up, and Gene asks her, says, "Excuse me, ma'am, are you the one who gives the hand jobs?" And she says, "Well, I sure am, sugar." And he goes, "Okay, great. Wash your hands, because I want a cheeseburger."
Oh, how did Gene respond to that?
He thought it was really funny, and then he
uh,
told us a slightly dirtier joke, which was good. And
oh,
so
that's
it
great.
was really funny. But you build it up a little and all that, and you can riff on that joke a little. But that was what I intended to tell, and he got a kick out of it. So I'm glad I got to tell him.
And you to me, and thank you for sharing that. To me, that's part of like the fun of this. So think about it now. You said you were a fan. You started your fandom in '76. Love Gun, first
Yep.
album. Think back to that kid in the '70s. If you told him one day you're gonna have dinner, sitting with Gene Simmons, telling him a joke, what would have that kid thought?
Incomprehensible.
Right?
I mean, really. And Mike, I'll share. I chose that word intentionally because when I saw Kiss in Fort Wayne in '79, when they came out, the underneath the stage with the colored smoke,
Yep.
I thought that Kiss is so big. I'm like, that can't be Kiss. Like
Right.
that's people playing Kiss. Like in my young, it's funny to say that, but I was like, they were so huge to me, larger than life,
Yep.
that I struggled to grasp the concept that I was actually seeing them live, that
Sure.
I was in their presence, if that makes any sense. I mean, it
Yep.
sounds crazy now, but that's how big they were for a 10-year-old kid.
Yeah, no, I agree. And to me, they were superheroes. There was Superman, there, things that Batman and Kiss, and it just in some ways they weren't real. So when you get to do something like this and you're sitting there telling Gene Simmons a joke, and then he's telling you a joke back, it's like you can't put a price on that. I know you can put a price on it, literally, but to me, you can't put a price on that.
Yeah, I agree. And just the relationship, one of the things that I had signed, so I had the first album signed in silver, which already had Peter, Paul, and Ace on it. And I just got Ace a week ago in Cleveland. So pretty fresh. So Gene completed that, which was nice. But the other thing I was thinking, gosh, so many items to choose from. And I ultimately picked a selfie picture that I took of Gene and me at the Vault in Detroit. And I had it blown up. And right before I was taking the selfie, he squeezed my cheeks like this. So
Yep.
he's squeezing my cheeks in the picture, and I'm like, you know what? That's kind of quirky and funny, and I'm gonna have him sign that. So I did. And then when we took our picture, we went behind the table with the case. He did it again. So
That's great.
it's kind of funny. But here's one of the most recognizable entertainers on the planet. I
Hmm.
mean, that's the other thing that it's hard to grasp how big he is. I mean, recognizable. Mick Jagger, McCartney, and Gene Simmons, and maybe Bono, and that's probably it.
Mm.
I mean,
Yeah.
truly, I think he's at that level. So having just any amount of time with him was just such a blessing, really.
That is awesome. And the dinner itself, from what I understand, was, I'll say, a top shelf type dinner, right? You said it was Voodoo Steakhouse, I think was the name of the place,
Yep.
right? So, and it was a top tier type restaurant, right?
Yeah, it was pretty good. There was a three-course meal. You could pick
Mm-hmm.
a Caesar salad or a soup, and then they had, I think, four options: filet or salmon or
Okay.
chicken, and then a couple desserts to choose from. But Gene sat and had his salad at the table next to us. He just
Oh,
sat down
wow.
and he was trying to eat throughout, but mostly he was just trying to talk to people.
Right.
But when we left, I think we left at midnight. We got there at 6:30, and
Wow.
just we were working the room, and I talked to Eric Singer for probably 45 minutes about all kinds of stuff. And Tommy was one of the guests, as I mentioned. We didn't
Yep.
know, and he came
Yeah.
to
I was
dinner.
going to ask you, so you didn't know Tommy was going to be there?
Didn't know. And apparently he lives in Vegas too, which I didn't
Wow.
know.
Okay.
So Tommy was there, and then two guys came toward the end, and I didn't see who they were, but they were talking to Gene, and I knew they were rock stars.
Mm-hmm.
And it turned out it was Chris Jericho and PJ Farley from Trickster, and also
Trickster. Yep.
Fozzy, Jericho's band.
Yep.
So those
Nice.
guys came in toward the end, but we were on our way out, so we didn't talk to those two very much. But
Did you get to talk to Tommy at all?
yeah, yep, a
Okay.
little bit. I got a nice picture with him. The pictures are just crazy. Several pictures with Eric, pictures with Tommy and Todd Kearns and all those guys. And we took a picture and posted it, my buddy and I, with Christina, because I wanted to thank her. And I posted, here's
Mm.
one of the MVPs, everybody, from the weekend, and of course lots of pictures with Gene. And so it was really great. Everybody was very gracious with their time, and it also was a little bit of a different crowd, Mike, because the fans at our level aren't tripping over each other to get a pick
Sure.
that's thrown or anything. So everybody's very respectful, and if you want a picture, you just wait for it, or you wait till they're walking somewhere and try to meet them in transit. And so there was nothing untoward happening, or nobody was being a total fangirl about it.
Which is awesome. Now, did Gene or Tommy or Eric make any reference or have any conversations that you heard about these final shows and the rest of the shows for this year?
Nope. And it was funny when Gene sat with us. Really, he was so forthcoming that we kind of let him drive the conversation. I
Hmm.
worked in a joke, but he wanted to talk and he wanted to share stories. And when we were doing our meet and greet with the case, most of it was him explaining what was in the case and a
Sure.
little bit. So it wasn't like we were just sitting down asking him questions. I had plenty to ask, but
Of
it
course.
just wasn't the right flow for that. So I suppose I could have asked Eric. We just told him, hey, we're excited for you to come to Columbus. He's a Cleveland guy, and
Sure. Yep.
but the show in Columbus is a festival show as
Later this
part of
month, right?
Yep, it's Memorial Day weekend.
Yep.
And it's one of those 4-day things. Kiss is the Saturday headliner. Rob Zombie opens for him. Sunday is Foo Fighters. So we're going for the Kiss and Foo Fighters days. But I also am not going to go 12 hours and camp out and see some of these bands that I don't know. I'll roll in a few hours before Kiss
Sure.
and take that in. But yeah, I'm excited about it. I've got right now 5 more shows. So we're going to the Columbus show, which is literally a mile from my house. And then we're going to do Indy and Detroit and the final 2 nights in New York. And who knows, it's possible we could add some others, but right now those are the shows we're going to plan to see.
So right now I only have tickets for the last 2 New York shows. So certainly, obviously you'll be in my neck of the woods. Make sure you hit me up beforehand. We got to meet again in person.
Oh yeah, absolutely. For sure.
Awesome.
I've been talking to Ron and some other friends about getting together. I think we're going to come in on Thursday through Sunday. And so, yeah, we'll talk offline about meeting up, but would love to catch up and share, those last 2 shows.
Awesome. Now you mentioned a few times, I want to go a little more detail on it, that he had these other items that were available for auction or for bidding. So what was that like?
So there were probably, let's see, I'm looking at the list here. There were probably 20 or so items that were available. Now, this was a silent auction, so you have a sheet and you write down your number or bidder number or your name. And, depending on the price of the item, each incremental bid would have been 50 or 10 or whatever dollars more than the prior one. So looking at this, the range of prices for items that sold, I think everything sold. The lowest item was $300 and the highest item was $4,000.
Wow. Do you remember what kind of items those were?
Yeah, well, so I highlighted, there's a couple that are unique that I'll tell you about, and then there's some high ticket items. So here are the high ticket items. Gene Simmons worn black leather pants from the 90s, signed in silver Sharpie, $4,000.
Wow.
And those escalate. As I understand it, I was talking to the volunteer who was staffing the silent auction. People were kind of going back and forth on it, and a couple people really wanted it, so the price probably got escalated as a result.
Sure.
There was a Gene Klein 2nd grade report card signed by Gene, and I can send you. I took a picture of some of these items.
Oh, nice. Okay.
That was kind of cool. The next highest item was an embroidered denim shirt from the 90s. It looks like something from the Revenge era or right Unplugged. It was denim, really nice raised embroidery, and he signed that. That went for $3,050.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
There was a Crazy Nights Eric Carr drum decal, like several different decals like you would put on the snare, the tom, whatever it was. Yep. And, the Shakira symbol.
Yep. The upside down 4, thing. I call it.
Yep. Yeah. And so Gene signed that. That went for $1,400. And then there was a Kiss Cruise 10 prototype lifesaver or life preserver. So like the round white thing with everything, it said Kiss Cruise 10. That went for about $2,000. And I think Gene, it wasn't signed, but I think Gene said he would sign it for the person who won it in the auction.
Okay, nice.
Then I highlighted a couple unique items here that weren't as expensive or didn't go for as high a price, but were still neat. There was a Kiss My Ass toilet paper box prototype that had Peter's face on it. And I think they must have had just Kiss My Ass toilet paper. That went for $275. And I think that was an Australia product. I don't think it was available in the States. Well, it was a prototype, so it probably wasn't produced.
Right.
And then there was an artist proof, a rendition of a proposed building that Bill Aucoin was trying to build. I don't know if it was LA or New York, but at one point, maybe for Aucoin management, he was looking at actually constructing a bricks and mortar facility. And so this rendering of that building was signed by Gene, and that went for $600.
Wow. What I love about these things, like they seem to run the gamut of all different types of things. So, and I say this all the time with people that collect. What I would collect might be different than what you would collect, might be different than what the next person collects. And what something is worth is what that person's willing to pay for it. So I hear this and I say, well, the leather pants, I probably wouldn't be interested in that. But that Eric Carr drum pieces that you were talking about, oh man, that sounds freaking great. And the prototype item, the Peter Criss thing, well, that sounds really cool also. So for me, there's like all different price points of different things. And, it sounds like there would be something there for us diehard fans like us. It would be at something like this. It'd be something that would interest most of us.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. I bid on a couple things. I did bid on the Eric Carr drum decals, but was
Hmm.
out of it pretty early as that
Uh-huh.
escalated up. And then there was a 1976 Kiss Army complete kit in the black folder that Gene signed, and put a couple bids on that. That went a lot higher than I thought, Mike. That ended up going for $2,100,
Wow.
well over what I bid early on. So I'm at some point I'd like to get a kit because I joined the Kiss Army I think in about 80 when it started to break up. So I got some stuff in the mail, but you've probably heard stories about how a coin management was they ran out of stock of stuff and I
Yep.
got random things and I never got the full Kiss Army kit that you saw in the on the merch forms in Love Gun and Rock and Roll Over and all that. But so that was just a little out of my range.
Now, were these items, I'll say, because you said the stuff that was in your case was tagged so that somebody would know it was owned by Gene Simmons, right? Was like this Kisami kit, was it tagged?
I think so. Yep. And
Okay.
that was on most, not all, but most of those silent auction items were signed.
Okay. Wow. Nice. Very nice.
And
So,
the pop up shop was a mix, Mike. There was some newer stuff. They had some backpacks and like Love Gun, the big 2 foot Love Gun figures, and I bought a Gene Simmons money bag hat from the pop up shop.
yep, I saw it sitting there. Yeah. Nice.
And they had, one of the things they had maybe a dozen of these tour itinerary books that were hardbound or not, they're spiral bound, copied with the tour manager and the agency and the hotel numbers and fax numbers and all
Yep.
that stuff. So there was maybe a dozen or so of those and
Nice.
some different things. And they actually had for sale a couple of those Australian carnival mirrors, and I think Paul was going for 600 and Peter was 800. And in hindsight, I probably should have bought one, especially the Peter. But if I had seen those at a convention that I drove to, I'd probably buy them.
Well, that's what I'm
When I
thinking. How are you
bought
getting that
this
home?
ticket and airfare, yeah,
Exactly.
I had a lot invested in the trip already, so I decided to cool it on some of the other purchases.
I think that's very understandable. But to me, it just sounds like all around a great weekend. Like you said earlier, it sounds like nobody left there thinking, gee, that was not what I expected.
Yeah, it would. I can't imagine anybody having even an average time. I mean, everything about it was amazing, and just by virtue of the case you got and the show and the time with Gene, not even the stuff that he signed for you in the meet and greet, which early on when you go to your first cruise or when you have access to people, you're like, oh my God, I got to get this signed, I got to get a
Right.
pick, I got to get a drumstick. And now, because we've done some of that, it's like it's not about that. It's just about the time that you get to spend with someone like Gene. And I'm calculating conservatively over 2 days, we probably spent 25, 30 minutes with him.
That's awesome. And you know what? We said at the top of this that, and I understand some people will just view this as a money grab. I don't expect Gene or anybody to work for free, right? So of course you have to pay for these kind of things, right? Um, my friends have said to me a few times, "Oh, you've met Gene so many times. You must be on a first name basis." And I'll be the first to say, "Nope, I'm just another paying customer at these events." I understand that. But saying that, these are much more intimate. They are much more one-on-one type things. And I don't want to say the name of these people because I don't know if they want it out there, although they did share it on Facebook. But I have friends who were there also. And the husband and wife are both Navy sailors, or they were at one point in their life. And they posted that Gene presented them a United States flag that had in the 90s flown in Iraq. And I even got chills just now as I was saying that. Gene, that was
Yes.
not like one of the gifts that was it. This was something special that Gene knew because he had met them in the past that they were going to be there. And he's like, you know what? A fan, somebody presented me this flag from Iraq years ago. And I know these two people I've met a number of times, and they, like I said, Navy sailors, they would appreciate this flag. And I saw that post and I was like I want to almost like tear up right now just thinking about it. Like you can't get cooler than that. That to me, so yes, it might be a quote unquote money grab, but that to me goes to the heart of who Gene Simmons is as a person. He knew these people were going to be there, and he said, "You know what? I'm going to present them this flag that was given to me a few decades ago." It's friggin' just amazing to me.
Yeah, I saw that post too, Mike. I
Yep.
wasn't privy to that when it was happening, and I don't happen to know that couple, but I saw that, and like you, I got some chills. And he's got a great memory. So we did our meet and greet, as I mentioned, on Saturday. So my buddy Gresso, his meet and greet was on Sunday afternoon. And one of the items he brought was a shirt that we had printed up for the Columbus show back in 2019 that said on the back Doyle and Gresso's Kiss Army, and on the front said Kiss Columbus, etc. So he had him sign that. And when he laid it down, he goes, "Oh, you know Doyle? Doyle was here yesterday." And I'm like, "You gotta be kidding me!" Like I'm because people ask me that too. You're like, "Oh, Gene probably knows you on a first name basis." I'm like, "He has no idea who I am." And then I heard that, I'm like, "Well, at least he remembered me that weekend, you know."
That's
And
right. That's right. And to me, look, we did, my daughter and I did a couple of the master classes that he did. And he had chosen my daughter one year to sing lead vocal, another year to do background vocals on one of the songs. And I have a video of him complimenting her, harmonizing with him or whatever. And I'm like, I must have watched that video 1,000 times. I'm like, he's like, good job, Courtney, good job. And I'm just like, again, going back to that kid sitting on the rug at 7, 8 years old, looking at the back of Kiss Alive 2, this guy with blood all over him. If you would have told me, hey, one day he's going to be complimenting your daughter singing, I would have been, yeah, right, okay, what are you smoking? It's just, it's absolutely amazing to me, these kind of experiences.
yeah, it's a highlight for that, and something that I'll remember for the rest of my life for sure. And it's unlike any, we're many of us who do these things are fortunate enough to do a lot of cool things. Like we've been to Ohio State's national championship games and Rose Bowls, and followed Kiss around. So that doesn't get lost on me. I know that I'm pretty grateful, and I realize that this is a special thing that I'm fortunate to be able to do, and so I don't take that for lightly. It really means a lot, and I'm just thrilled to have been able to do it.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%, Darla. And I'll say this, at least for myself, I had to make a conscious decision 7, 8, 9 years ago of, do I want to keep that collection of Kiss stuff that I have on a shelf that I bought on eBay in 1998 or 2005, or do I want to collect memories? And I actually sold probably 80 or 90% of the collection. I didn't sell the stuff in my childhood that really meant a lot to me, but I sold off a lot of the other stuff so I could collect memories. And these memories of these kind of events is stuff that when I'm 70 years old, sitting in a rocking chair and talking to my kids or talking to my grandkids or talking to my wife or friends, these are the things I'm going to I'm not going to remember that I won an auction on eBay for Kiss color forms in 1999. That's not going to matter to me, but I will remember these kind of events.
Absolutely. And it frankly, it helps that I'm not a car guy.
Me
I'm not
neither.
driving an expensive car or whatever, but to me, I wouldn't trade any of these Kiss experiences for anything. And, I met new people this weekend who I hadn't met, or who I knew just through the Kiss community, or they had been on with you, or, Ron Buckley knew somebody. And so there were a lot of new people who I met, and that's amazing. And and it's going to be interesting. I'm pretty sure I'm going to be friends with these people even beyond Kiss, at some
Yeah.
point when they, like with Ron, he comes to Columbus, we go to New York, and there are lots of people like that who we're fortunate to know. And the friendship is certainly based in part on Kiss, but it will survive beyond that, and these relationships will go on even though they're founded in history.
And well said. And that's why I started off by saying these events are not for everybody. And people who are sitting at home, they type on a keyboard, oh, I can't believe so paid X thousands of dollars or hundreds of dollars for this. It's the event's probably not for you because you're thinking the only thing that matters is that concert or that item that you received, all of which are important, right? We spent a lot of time talking about that, but it's that other connection with the fans and the friends that you've made from around the world over years. That is all. It's like a mini vacation that you're getting together with people of like minds, and that's worth something. And that's something that you're going to remember forever. Maybe even some ways more than an item that was in your case, which you had a bunch of really freaking cool items in that case, by the way. but
I did.
it's the other things are also what you're going to remember, and it's hard to put a price on that other component. And if you're not going to these things, you can't understand that other component.
Yeah, that's right. And we're very fortunate that there are so many unique aspects to how Kiss made it and why we have the Kiss Army. This isn't Other bands don't have this. I mean, even Beatles, there were a few Beatles conventions, but not like this. And
Right.
there aren't Led Zeppelin cruises, and people aren't doing dinner with Mick Jagger. And those are all great bands and great artists in their own right, but there's no Rolling Stones Army. This is unique. What we have is unlike anything else, and it's special.
Yeah. And I'll say this, and it's all relative, right? So my friend and I were on one of the previous episodes talking about the Aerosmith farewell tour. And at the time, they hadn't announced what the price for the meet and greet was going to be on their tour. And they've since obviously announced it. And it's only with Steven Tyler and Joe Perry, two legends, right? So I'm not minimizing, but have you seen what the price is for that meet and greet? A
No,
quick picture,
no.
$2,500 for a quick picture.
Wow.
Okay.
Really?
And from what I understand, some of the cities it's sold out.
Wow.
Okay. So again, it all comes down to what an individual thinks something is worth for themselves. Um, I know people love to hate Vinnie Vincent, and I understand why. And I've been a big person that said his events, $500 for a weekend, in my mind, was a steal. You know, I was going to a 2-day event for $500, or I can meet Joe Perry and Steven Tyler for 10 seconds for $2,500. Now, I'm not saying Vinnie Vincent's more accomplished than, not at all. It's not even close.
Yeah.
But for value for money, I felt I was getting a lot of value for money. And to me, I hear about a weekend away, 3 days, being with people, yada, 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 all the concert, the items that you receive, the dinner. This to me sounds like it was a lot of fun for the money.
It was absolutely correctly and value priced. I mean, if you
Yeah.
back out all the individual things, dinner for two at a Vegas steakhouse, a private show with a bunch of cool musicians with 120 people in attendance.
Yeah.
Just the case alone and the value of those things, let alone being autographed already. You kind of back and time with Gene pictures. You back all that out and figure out what the margin is on there. It's more than fairly priced, I think.
I agree, but and I only bring this up because I know people who watch this will make their comments, and everybody's opinion is valid. I'm not minimizing that, but my opinion is you got a good deal on this to me, and the experience of being with friends and this, one of a kind merchandise. It's just, I'm glad, we didn't speak beforehand. Well, I asked you if you had a good time and you said yes. So you don't know, when I invited you to come on, you might've been like, it was good, but right. So I'm actually happy to hear that you, and it sounds like everybody who was there, left feeling, damn, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think all of our hearts are full and memories of a lifetime and just reinvigorated in Kiss. I'm ready for this show later this month. We've got a big group of our friends from Columbus and Kiss Army people from around the country coming in for this. And so I'm
That is
excited
awesome.
it's in my city and I'm going to do my very best to meet up with as many people as I can ahead of time.
That is awesome. Last thing I could think of right now. So obviously you had a jam-packed weekend. Did you get to go to the Kiss Mini Golf or the Kiss Museum at all that was there?
So we didn't do the whole museum tour. We had intended to, but it just didn't quite work out. But we
Yeah.
went down to the shop and just bopped around a little bit. And that was actually, if you did your meet and greet on Sunday and you wanted to ship your case, you had to take it to the mini golf place, and
Okay.
that's where they were keeping them. And then I think we get invoiced this week, and then we pay it and they ship it. I don't know if they're using FedEx or something, but
Right.
so we went in actually twice and bought a few things, nothing major, a few golf balls, that kind of thing. And
Right. Right.
also think the people who got there Friday probably bought all the good stuff that was
Of course.
there.
Of course. Absolutely. With all the years it's been there, I've yet to make it to Vegas to go. So one of these years I got to get to that mini golf, and I love to see the museum as well.
Well, I hope they redo the casino. You may have heard this from other people, but the Rio's not the best.
Oh, really? Okay.
It's a little rundown. I think another chain maybe has purchased the property, and hopefully there'll be an influx of capital to redo everything and make it a little nicer. But the whole arm of the facility that was dedicated to conventions, back where our exhibition hall was, there was nothing going on. You had to walk what seemed like a couple hundred yards to get back there, and it's just a little rundown. So I'm hopeful that it will be if the Kiss Museum stuff is going to stay there, which they just opened it, so I suspect it will. I hope that they redo the Rio so it's a little nicer. We didn't stay there, Mike. We ended up staying at the Cosmo, which was
Okay.
fabulous, in part because my wife wanted a balcony. So there
Okay.
are a few of those to be found in Vegas. So we went to the Cosmo, which was a little nicer, and so we weren't staying where the venue was, which was a little just mildly inconvenient. It wasn't really a big deal at all.
I hope you don't mind me asking this. Is your wife a Kiss fan?
Well, she married into it, so at least
Okay.
she appreciates all music. She actually goes to probably twice as many concerts as I do. But
Oh, wow.
the first time it really got her was on the first cruise, where she was kind of being cool and like, oh yeah, I'm going along with my boyfriend, and then when we walked in for the picture with Kiss, she was like, oh my God, she's like, Gene, grab my hand, and she was starstruck, and I'm like, okay, have a drink, relax, because
That's great.
it's overwhelming. But so she's been a great Kiss fan and really enjoys it. And it's sometimes interesting to get her perspective on things because she didn't grow up with Kiss, but from her somewhat neutral perspective, she was like, I can't believe this. You talked to Eric Singer for 45 minutes. Gene sat at our table for 10, 15 minutes. We talked to him. We got pictures. Oh my gosh, there's, Todd Kearns and,
Mhm.
Tommy and everybody. So I think she realized she has an appreciation an element of gratitude to her about this whole thing too.
That's all. And I was actually, when I asked you the question, I was hoping you said she wasn't really a big Kiss fan because I always wonder what is a non-Kiss fan or an average Kiss fan's perception. And it sounds like she had a great time also.
She did, and my buddy Gresso's girlfriend Heather she's not a big concert goer. She's been to a handful of shows like the Stones a few years ago. So she came in with no frame of
Mm.
reference for Kiss or what the fandom is like. And so the show, she was like, oh my, her head was spinning. And I think her first show is going to be New York on Friday. I don't think she's going to the Columbus show.
Wow.
She doesn't like crowds, but so we're trying to prep her, and I'm trying to give her musical education. Listen to this song this week. Next week we'll do Black Diamond. Then we'll do whatever.
That's great. Oh, that's great. But that to me, that's great. That's what it's all about. Well, is there anything else from the weekend that I didn't think of asking, or you're like, oh wait, I got to mention this before we disconnect here?
No, I don't think so. Again, just heartfelt gratitude to everybody who put this on, and to Gene. I mean, he doesn't need the money. He doesn't have to do this. Uh, Some people might think it's cliche when he says, "I'm doing this for the fans." From the bottom of my heart, I believe that he is doing it for the fans.
I
He's
agree.
giving away his collection. He's spending this time with the fans because he cares and he knows the legacy he's built is very impactful and very much important and a part of our life, just like we've been talking about all day. And the Kiss Army Nation and that camaraderie and that love is real, and he knows that. So he's on the level, and so gratitude for him for even doing these things still at almost 74 years old.
It's amazing. And I'll just close on this. I know he's doing another one of these types of events in New York City right after the final shows, which is again in my backyard. And I've contemplated, I'm like, oh, it's around the holidays. Do I really want to have that kind of bill? And after hearing your story, I'm like, oh, I'm going to go home tonight, lay down on my pillow tonight and then think, maybe I need to do this. Maybe I need to do this because this just sounds like it was a blast.
Yeah. So interestingly, when my buddy who I mentioned was during his meet and greet on Sunday, they're engaged and they've been thinking about maybe getting married. And Gene says, "I'll marry you in New York if you come to
Oh, wow.
the Ladyland event." So
Mhm.
there, that bug has been planted. So who knows what will sprout from that?
Oh, boy.
But we'll see. And frankly, I think that sounds amazing. And if both of these events were announced simultaneously, I'm not sure I would have picked Vegas. I might have picked Electric Ladyland.
Interesting.
No regrets, of course, but
I was going
I
to say,
can't
but
afford
there's
to do
nothing
both.
like the
But
first. There's nothing like the
yes,
first. So
that's right.
I don't think you could have looked back with regrets and saying, gee, I was at the first one he ever did like this.
Yep, no regrets at all. But I'm
Awesome.
hopeful that maybe you'll get to do that. I would love to hear about it if you do.
I'll have to sleep on that one. But Soil, this has been an absolute blast. I loved hearing about this. Like I said, I didn't really read much about it beforehand or even afterwards. So I was really excited to hear what you were going to say. And I didn't know what you were going to say beforehand. So this has been a lot of fun. I think the viewers and listeners are going to really love this. And I just want to say also, thank you. You were very generous with your time. I know we spent a lot of time talking about this. And thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Great to see you again. I appreciate you having me on, and I look forward to seeing you again on the end of the road here real soon.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, everybody. Thanks for watching. Take it easy. Doyle, thanks for joining.
You bet.
Alrighty, there you have it. I'd like to thank Doyle for being so generous with his time, talking all about the Gene Simmons event and giving us all that great insight. Thanks so much, Doyle. For everybody watching and listening at home, let me know, what were your thoughts about the event? Are there any of the gifts that you heard that you wish you had in your collection? Let me know what you think. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit that subscribe button below. If you're listening to one of my podcasts, subscribe over there as well. Also, head on over to Facebook and follow my page, The Rock Experience with Mike Brunn, where each and every day we talk about all the rock and roll music that you love. You could also follow me on Instagram and Twitter as well. That's it for this episode. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. See you all next time.